All right, we got all sorts of stuff. We're going to kick it off right at the beginning here because, as I mentioned, so I'm coming to in surgery here, and I eventually they wheel me back to my room, and they give me my phone, which was probably a mistake on their part and my part for that matter. And I start to see everything that's coming out, and the report is finally out. And this is the report for those that don't know that was commissioned now back at the beginning of the year by the United States Soccer Federation, an outside entity that they hired to, investigate the situation involving Gregg Berhalter, Claudio Reyna, Danielle Reyna, Claudio's wife, and all of the stuff that went on in the communication. We come to find out that there's not a whole lot new in terms of revelations when it comes to what happened, but it had kind of gone out of sight, out of mind for a little bit and died down, and people had moved on. And this just kind of brought it right back up. And I read the whole report, every single word. And again, I was left with a feeling that this is just a shameful, sad, vindictive, childish, and infuriating coda to the Gregg Berhalter era. And it was just so unnecessary and irresponsible of all that were involved. And I think I've said this before, but it bears repeating. Ultimately, while the Reynas certainly are going to have consequences to their actions, they're really going to get what they ultimately wanted. And that was Gregg Berhalter, I think, not continuing to be the coach. And like I said, it was sad again, and I got mad. And then I looked at it, and it at times you just turned around and said, "This is ridiculous." And it details the Reynas, consistent, like I said, indefensible behavior. And look, I'm a father, Mosse. I can empathize with parents protecting and supporting their kids. I would certainly do that within reason. But I think the mistake that the Reynas made, and it's clearly outlined here in this report, is thinking that their personal relationships entitled them to this special access and influence. And it just comes time and time again. Some of it is redacted in terms of the communications. But we come to find out that even during the World Cup, there were problems with the Reyna family at the, like I said, in Qatar. And families, for those that don't know, the World Cup, usually what happens is a federation will organize a group trip. It's kind of everybody's together. And so it's wives and girlfriends and parents and grandparents and stuff, and everybody's kind of together. And, there's dynamics involved in that, but there is also a kumbaya type of experience. And outlined in this is that, the Reynas and the Reyna family were certainly not happy about the way things that were going. But then it goes back into, like I said, a pattern of Claudio Reyna in particular reaching out and complaining. And, all these texts are laid out in front. And then Danielle Reyna, and it should be said that neither of them fully, and Claudio didn't at all, participate in this. And so we're only left with what this investigative group was able to ascertain from the people that they talked to. And that was primarily Gregg, his wife, Gregg Berhalter, his wife, and other members of the family, and then everybody that would talk. And so Gregg Berhalter, I think, actually comes out the best, but there are no winners in this, Mosse. It's just, I don't know. Did you read any of this, Mosse, or did you just move on to other stuff?
I read some of the quotes that are out there. Claudio Reyna, not a fan of female referees.
Yeah. So hold on. So at one point, Claudio Reyna, in establishing a pattern of him, again, communicating, sending messages, sending texts, sending emails to people of power, importance, talking about his dissatisfaction with whatever it could be, the playing time, or in this case, like you mentioned, the fact that a U.S. national team game was having female referees. Now that's a horrible thing and a bad thing for Claudio. But I would say this, Mosse. Sometimes I would love in this day and age to snap my fingers and everybody's personal communications were public, and to see what we would be as a culture, as a country, and as individuals. And I'm sure that you and everybody that's listening, everybody's watching, I'm sure that you have, group chats and group text chains that you are on that you wouldn't want out there in public. The problem is that, when you send emails and when you do this and when you step over that line, they are going to be, and that's not to excuse Claudio for saying these things, but there also, I think, needs to be an understanding that we all have things that we have said that we thought were private or are private, that if they came out would make us look maybe not great. When it comes to this situation here, the attention and the obvious piling on of the Reynas has come, and people are denouncing it, and that's fine. That you knew that was going to happen, and I think that's that is fair. Everybody's going to want their pound of flesh. And again, this is in no way am I excusing what the Reynas did here. And ultimately, so Danielle too, talking to people, and it wasn't just to Gregg Berhalter, evidently, that the communications were going, and that's why they really, I think, in this document wanted to establish a pattern to show that this was Claudio and the Reynas ultimately using their influence, using their connections, and overstepping the bounds in many ways. As far as what happened 30 some years ago between Gregg Berhalter and his now wife, then girlfriend, back in college, it goes over the story again. Not a whole lot new with regards to the story, and again, the Berhalters were the ones that were talking, that were forthright, that agreed to all these interviews, and Berhalter family members and all that. So again, nobody wins in this. Everybody loses, including American soccer, ultimately. But if there is any type of, I guess, not silver lining, but if anybody comes out in a more positive way, I think it's probably Gregg Berhalter. And not that he needed to be vindicated, but I think the report ultimately shows this is what happened. It was inappropriate from the Reynas, and Gregg Berhalter takes full responsibility for that. That TED talk that he thought was private, and they go through all of that. I don't know where this goes now, other than because he has been kind of absolved, Gregg Berhalter, and that no further action or punitive action is recommended in this report. He is and continues to be now a quote unquote viable candidate for the head coaching job. But I think it's hard now for the Federation to continue on with him. But theoretically, he is still up for the job right now.
I agree with you. They keep saying he remains a candidate, but he's not. There's no world in which a new GM looking to put his stamp on things, looking to signal a fresh start, as his first act is going to rehire Gregg Berhalter. So he's not going to be the coach when he otherwise might have been had none of this come to light. And Gio is going to remain on the team. So in that sense, you're right, the Reynas win. But also to your point, I could see Gregg Berhalter getting an MLS coaching job in 2023 before I could see Claudio Reyna getting a front office job. I might be wrong about that, but my sense is that he's been made really toxic by this whole situation.
Yeah, he has. And, I think that, I think I tweeted out yesterday that he made a mistake, and we all make mistakes. And that mistake, like I said, was overstepping the bounds. And there's no way they can put that genie back in the bottle. It is there. And toxic, I don't know. I think that's a little strong. I think that ultimately humans, we are forgiving. I did think that the statement that the Reynas put out through their agent was a little weird, in that if they just owned it, apologized, this will go away. People will move on. And I do think people are ultimately, humans are forgiving, and they would have moved on. And yet in this statement, they said that there's a whole nother side to this story, which kind of leaves it open for more chapters. And also, for those that are saying that this all happened because it's enabled by the Soccer Federation and, the nepotism and the Old Boys Network and all that kind of stuff. Nobody enabled anything here, because there are personal relationships, there are histories, there are connections that are accepted and even valued in every single industry and every single business out there. Well, the ones that involve humans. And by the way, that those can actually be beneficial. But like we said, sometimes those boundaries get crossed, as happened in this case, and the action has to be taken and was taken. And every industry that's populated with humans, they have all of those relationships, and it's not going to change. You can say, "Oh, let's clean house and get a whole new group in." Well, that whole new group of humans is going to have those connections, those relationships and histories and experience with each other. So it should come as no surprise that many humans working in the American soccer industry actually came to it with a history from the game. And finally, I'll leave you with this, Mosse. And you mentioned Gio Reyna. We're going to talk about him later on, but Gio Reyna is not going anywhere, and nor should he. He is a great talent. He should not be punished for this. His behavior, whatever. I think that is the smallest part of all of this. And, Claudio Reyna, yes, he is going to suffer for this, and people will look at him differently. He is still, the way I see, he is still an American soccer legend. I think he's still knowledgeable and intelligent and passionate when it comes to the game. But, as I said, he and his wife made a really big mistake, like we all do, and they should have known better.
You like that clip? Well, my State of the Union podcast drops every week. Subscribe now on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. You like that clip? Well, my State of the Union podcast drops twice a week right here on my very own YouTube page. The only way to stay up to date is to hit that subscribe button down below. Size the day, and see you soon.